Hello again, everyone out there in YouTube land. Here to do part 2 of my hardcovers and softcovers. And starting out here, this is a Street Fighter II The Movie Perfect album. And this was a gift from my buddy Nate. In the 90s, they went to Japan. His family would go to Japan, pretty regularly. Some of them spoke Japanese, and they'd go over there pretty regularly. And they went to the movies to see this. And Nate was telling me how it's a little more of a big deal, a little different when you go to the movies in Japan, at least back then. He said, whatever movie was in the theater, they'd have merchandise you could buy, almost like a gift shop in the lobby. You could buy posters and T-shirts and hats and comic books. And this album is basically, kind of like a program you'd get at a baseball game. And it's pretty big. There's where the spine would be if it was American, but Japanese, you read it backwards to forwards, and it's not in the best shape, but he brought it back, and we were both into Street Fighter 2 and video games back then, but he knew I was into anime more, and he knew I was into comic books more, so he brought it back and gave it to me, and I thought it was really cool, and I've saved it all this time, and that was really neat, because I'd have never, not even never had this, I probably would have never seen one if he didn't bring this back for me, so I thought that was damn cool of him. And, the gifts from friends and stuff that a friend gave you, like I said, they have a cool little bonus story and history and emotional attachment to them. So that was a thoughtful thing from a friend that I still appreciate having to this day. This is the Street Fighter Ultimate Edition Complete First Series by Capcom and Udon Studios. And this reprints, to that point, everything Udon did Street Fighter-wise, including the small backup stories that were published in Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine. I believe, at least at the time this came out, there's the only place to get them collected in print and read them. This is the first printing from 2006. They did a limited print run, and the second printings have a black cover. And this was $50 cover price, and they usually go for about $75-$80 when they do come up for sale. Keeping with the Japanese theme, this is Akira Volume 6, and I'm just a humongous fan of Katsuhiro Otomo. Akira is my favorite Japanese manga comic for the gaijin, and it's also my favorite Japanese animated movie. I just love his work. I love Akira. And I think animation-wise, that movie, God, it's from like 86 or 88, that movie still blows a lot of the stuff that's coming out today, blows it out of the water animation-wise. But again, that's where the spine would be if it was Americans. The thick books, this is a trade reprint, and they're in black and white because they didn't color them until Epic put them out over here. But my comic shop in the late 80s, they got this, sent this by mistake, and the distributor was like, just keep it. And they sold to me for like $5 or $10, and I was like, sure, I was a fan, I'll buy it. And what I think is really cool is you don't see these over here. It's, sorry about the focus, to learn how to focus is fine, but this is a painted cover by Katsuhiro Otomo, and I think that is just gorgeous. And I'd love to see the rest of these. I'll have to look them up, because they did not show those painted covers in the Epic versions. Next up, we have League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Black Dossier, and this is the only League of Extraordinary Gentlemen story to be original hardcover. Being a fan of Alan Moore like I am, have all the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen stories. The only books I'm missing is they did a variant to #1 of the first miniseries, and I can't remember. It was like a store exclusive or Dynamic Forces, but it goes for a little more. And there was another issue, it might have been issue 4 or 5, but one of the issues was recalled because they had a bunch of old-timey ads like Sears and Roebuck style. And one of the ads was for a Marvel douche, and Marvel Comics did not take kindly to that. And they had them recall it and reprint it. So those recalled editions, they go for, last I saw, they were going for like $300-$400. I don't know how many made it out, but those books go for big bucks, and there's only 2 I'm missing. But League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is a really cool read. For those of you who've seen the movie and not read the book, it's completely different. The first 2 miniseries are the best in my opinion. It starts getting a little weird the more it goes on with Alan, but that's how it is sometimes. But still great read, and especially for you folks across the pond, I started having to do some research on a lot of these British literature characters that weren't as popular over here as the series went on. But it's a good read. And I like Kevin O'Neill's art. At first, he's not the greatest. At first, I didn't really like his art. But it's grown on me, and I think he does a good job on this book. And he puts a lot of those obscure details in the background side, like Alan Moore would like him to do, I'm sure. And I just come to, associate him with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and nobody else. So he's grown on me a bit, and I think he does a good job on that title. This is the Fallout New Vegas All Roads Home hardcover original graphic novel, and it came with the collector's edition of the Fallout New Vegas game. And what I like about this is it's illustrated by Jeff Darrow of Hard Boiled fame. And I really like his art and all the detail he puts in. I'm trying to get a little focus for you, but he puts all this detail into his covers. And he recently did some Deadpool covers, and I really like his style a lot as well. I almost feel like I see a bit of an influence on a lot of my favorite artists. Like, I see a Japanese style influence on his work, and I see influence of Richard Corbin in there. You can almost see influence of Mad Magazine and the EC stuff, the way he packs all this stuff into one cover. But I really like his stuff. He's a good artist in my opinion. And here's another good artist that I like. This is Angry Christ Comics, the Cry for Dawn work of Joseph Michael Linsner. And this is basically a hardcover Image did. It reprints all his black and white original Cry for Dawn stuff. And I bought this to have, to read, because I sold all my... I still have like Drama and Dawn and Crypt of Dawn, but I was missing a few issues, but I sold all my Cry for Dawn stuff. And I sold it in the 90s when it was hot, so I actually did okay, because it hasn't gone up too much since then. As a matter of fact, I'd say number ones are actually probably going for a little less now than they were then, so I actually don't regret that one too much. I think a guy really wanted them, so I parted with him, and I think I did it at the right time there. So don't regret it too much, and maybe one day I'll go back and get them again, especially if I can find a good deal on them, But I really do like his work, and I can see why when those books came out, independent style, people were snatching them up, because his work was really phenomenal, and still is. I've showed this before. This is Stragano Noir. And this is basically all about Jim Steranko, his life in comics, his bio. He did crazy stuff. He helped visually design Indiana Jones. He's known for his comic work, but his bio is just an amazing read. He's like a damned comic book character, superhero. Aside from drawing comics, Jim Steranko was a male fashion model. He was an airplane wing-walking acrobat and showman, a on-stage magician, and I can't remember, it was either a race car driver or a stunt car driver. So this guy's biography is just amazing, the stuff this guy's done in his life. Crazy read. Definitely recommend it. This is Dark Horse Archives Volume 1, Magnus Robot Fighter 4000 AD by Russ Manning, and it's reprints of his old 60s Gold Key stuff. And I fell in love with Russ Manning's painted covers as a youngster. I like Magnus. But what I really like is Manning's design of these retro-like robots. They scream 50s and 60s, but what I like is they're not so over-the-top technologically advanced. They look like, okay, I could maybe see somebody building something like that. And you can see the joints and the gears and the rivets almost. He's just... somebody once said about Alex Schomburg, you could see every rivet in a piece he drew. And I can't remember who said it. It was probably an old Atlas editor or Marvel editor. But, somebody re-quoted it about Magnus. I think it was Jim Shooter, about Russ Manning's Magnus, rather. And he said, you can see all the gears and the logistics of how these robots are supposed to work, and, how Magnus finds their weak points. And, I mean, here's another one. It just kind of reminds me of, like, Lost in Space or something. They're not too outrageous. The design, it looks like, hey, maybe somebody could build something like that. So, I really dig his work. This volume 1 and 2. They did a volume 3. The interior art and the stories are a bit dated now. They don't hold up that well, I admit. So, unless you're a big fan of Magnus or you find these really cheap, I wouldn't really recommend picking them up. You might be disappointed. I hate to say that. But Russ Manning's covers, for me, are worth checking them out to see them in there remastered. Here's another one of my favorites by one of my favorite artists, Dave Stevens, The Rocketeer. And this is Eclipse Comics hardcover reprint from the 80s of the Pacific Presents stories. And you can see it's not that big. It was $19.95, which was pretty expensive back then. But it says all 5 action chapters, but I believe they were half stories in the Pacific Presents. So it was probably more like 3 or 4 comic issues. But I don't care, because Dave Stevens is truly a master, one of the greatest artists ever, in my opinion, and comics, in my opinion. And we lost him way too soon. His work on Rocketeer and Airboy is just unparalleled, in my opinion. Sorry, Alex Toth, but I think Dave Stevens is the greatest, airplane and, not aeronautics, you know what I'm trying to say, dogfight and airplane comic book illustrator that's ever been. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it, but look at that cover. Like Roger6951 would say, now that's a cover. I mean, Dave Stevens was the man. And Harlan Ellison said he didn't live in that time, but Dave Stevens captures the feel of those days perfectly, like he was there. You'd think he had a time machine. I mean, look at those supposed to be old photos. Just gorgeous. That airplane, man. Whew, God. Even to this day, I don't think there's too many people in the same arena as Dave Stevens. I mean, we lost him before he got to draw any real superheroes. He did a couple in the DC Who's Who, but that's about it. Moving on, this is Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Long Way Home from Buffy Season 8. And this is the one per store retailer's thank you hardcover, as you can see. The bottom there, limited hardcover edition. I bought all this Buffy stuff when it was hot. I have every issue and all the variants, so probably should have got rid of them when they were hotter, because I'm not the biggest fan. Maybe someday I'll just put the whole lot out there or make a trade. The last thing I'm going to show is, I had talked about this before and mentioned it to Thomas Williams. This is the Walking Dead Volume 1 red foil. One per store Walking Dead variant hardcover, and it's the red foil. And the reason it's got such a reflection is it's in its original shrink wrap, and that's what the sticker is on. It's not on the book, and it's in a Mylar. And I don't know, these, I think last I saw they're going for $80, $100, but it's, the cool thing about this is, I like signatures, and this book has a thank you letter inside it, signed by Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore, who don't get along, to say the least, and will not be doing any appearances together. And you see the cast of the show do a lot of appearances, but not Kirkman too often, so I'm really happy to have this book. Yeah, it's nice. And I want to touch on, Clint said in one of his videos, Hero Hunter 81, you can get magazine-sized Mylars, and you may have to order them from Gerber off their site, but you can get magazine-sized Mylars and Treasury-sized Mylars, and I use them to put my hardcovers and omnibuses in. So there's a great storage tip from Clint that I'm going to expound on. So good looking on that, and take care of your $50 hardcovers with a Mylar. So, but thanks for watching. I do always appreciate it. Everyone take care of yourselves, and happy comic book reading.